haven't seen that. There's a church in Paso Robles that's actually, kind of coming close to that. And there are a few other examples, but the norm, are around 200. If we could get a church to be about 250, I would be. If we could start 300 churches a year that were 250 members apiece, I would be the happiest person in the world. I mean, I think that'd be great. But we've got to get our mindset around that. But that's going to mean that we have to look at other options, because for a clergy to have paid clergy, it costs maybe $50,000 a year in housing and salary, unless you're in California, and then it's bumped up, right? Oregon. But then it's 30% on top of that. So you're looking at what? Another $65,000, $70,000 just for the clergy. That's a big investment. So what would it look like to have tent makers, to have CLPs, commissioned lay pastors, to have elders? Could an elder start a church? Sure. Could we send out elders to start churches? Absolutely. Those are the kind of things we've got to start wrestling with that are going to really change the way we do new churches.
We wrestled just briefly with, we talked about the relationship and how important relationships are. Could you talk a little bit about healthy relationships? Because, if you start out being very passionate about that, you're also moving a people in a way that you want it to be healthy and Christ-centered.
Mm-hmm.
As you see,
yeah, keep talking. I mean, I don't. You don't need me to talk. You can. No, you've got it. You've got it.
No, because I do think that when you build these relationships with people and they're empowered to go out and to do evangelism, I think you have to keep it in the forefront that you want the relationship to stay healthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what does a healthy relationship look like?
That's what I wanted you to talk about.
You wanted me to talk about it. Well, maybe we could add, what does an unhealthy relationship look like in your mind?
I would say an unhealthy relationship is a pastor-dependent relationship, very possibly.
Okay.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, James Kim, who's pastor in the colony, we were in a meeting one time, and I don't know what we were talking about, but he goes, when are people going to learn to feed themselves? I'm so tired of people coming to my church and wanting me to feed them all the time. And I've got people that have been members for 30 years, been Christian for 20 years or 15 years or whatever, but they don't know how to feed themselves. To me, that's unhealthy. When we continue to act like infants and don't know how to feed ourselves, that would be unhealthy. But if we, maybe it's a problem with us clergy. We like it when people are dependent upon us. I don't know. Huh? I don't either. I mean, it irritates me, but I'd rather people go out and do good things and let them go out in the world and empower them. But that's what happens when our management kind of comes in. When that side starts to rear its head and becomes in control, the manager doesn't want people to go out and do stuff. It wants to bottleneck. I mean, it wants all the control. And so, when you have that high vision relationship program, it's very permission giving, inviting people to go out. It's only when management kind of takes control that it becomes unhealthy. Other questions? Other thoughts? Well, we've got a long way to go with our church starting, and we spent years and years and years developing our systems and managing. It's going to take a while to get out. The other kind of thing to think about with this, just as a caution, because this is where most of you are. And part of the reason this goes back to when I said, wait as long as you can to charter. John Haberlin, he was in the position I'm in, but maybe 7, 8 years ago. Some of you know John. He's up in the Washington State area. Centralia, yeah. He did some research, and he found that most of our new church developments cap out at about 125. And it was very concerning. They just couldn't bust through that. And I wondered, after looking at this, whether or not sometimes if we as we're growing, we go through our birth and infancy, and we decide to charter, that kind of the management side of the church comes on us full force. And we had to start dealing with the polity. So what happens when our vision is short-circuited? Where do we tend to go? And also, we find ourselves over on the retirement side real quick, where management is more important than vision. And also, you can short-circuit yourself if you don't have a vision. If you're just out there, hey, let's start a church, and you haven't really done the developmental work, the foundational work, the mission plan, and talking about those issues. If you just start doing it, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I like the ready, fire, aim kind of mentality. just go start doing it and we'll figure it out. But if you don't have some developmental kind of parts to it and understand the vision and are captivated by some kind of vision, then at some point, you could skip from these right over to here real quick, especially when you the management side of it, because we are Presbyterian. What does the word mean? Presbyteros. What does that mean? Elder. So what do we lead out with about Presbyterians? We're elder driven. We're it's about a polity question, not a faith thing. So if we're not careful, it's so natural for us to let that management, those committees. When you're starting a new church, you get those Presbyterians, and what do they want to see? What committee do you want me to serve on? And that happens very, very quickly. And if you're not careful about that, it's really easy to kind of live into the reality of being Presbyterian and letting that happen. You're going to need it at some point, but just not right here. Not when you're birthing. Just leave things a little looser and let things grow and let vision kind of be cast before you just clamp it down and institutionalize it.
One thing I hear you kind of saying here is that if the management side does not catch the vision and does not carry the vision with the pastor, then that's when you start hitting roadblocks too.
It could very well be, yeah. You got to remember, management exists to support the vision and give it flight. Any other reason the management exists, then if it becomes controlling, it becomes in a lead, and then you have that conflict. These are some of the issues that you're going to have within your church. You're going to have those conflicts all the time. After going through some of this, I look back on the church I started and I went, oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. Now when I'd have people that came from other churches and they wanted to have more policies, they wanted to have where our committees, where our structures, and you know what had happened? It happened when we built our building. Because what did our building signify to them? Well, we're a mature church.
You're real.
We're real. And they walk in, they're like, where's all the structure? And we're like, oh no, do what you want. And so where's our policies? Where's our,
They start wanting to protect the building. They put their money into it. So wait a minute, the skateboarders are coming in.
But that's this.
They're messing up
because there's no vision.
Yeah.
So where there's no vision, who's gonna control? It's gonna be the management. And you've got to kind of be vigilant about that. And try to, it's hard, it's very subtle in this area when vision kind of starts taking that back seat. It's very subtle, and it can happen real quickly. And what you have to do is kind of revision. And how you do this is you kind of back out. If you're in this area, you start developing more relationships and de-emphasizing management kind of controls and stuff. That's the transformational side, not a new church. But I think it's important because it makes sense in how you develop and how you go about developing the church. And being, I found that if I had known this early on, I could have avoided a lot of pain for myself. Just been aware of that, how important that vision is and keeping that in front of people. I knew it, but I didn't know it. And the relationships and the programs and the relationship, boy, I'm not sure we'd have been any more faithful or successful, but I certainly would have been a lot healthier up here and in here, because then I would have been able to go, okay, so I know why this conflict is happening. Let me deal with it. Okay? Now, is this what you expected today from the ABCs? Not quite? Yeah, kind of. We're getting there. We're getting there. We got about 20 minutes before we break for lunch. And I'm not sure I can get into the next piece. I may want to wait till after lunch to do that.
How do you stop the movement of a congregation that is determined that the building is the only way to grow to the next level?
I don't know if you stop them. It may be. That's it may be the next thing. Buildings are one of those kind of, as we talk about, we're going to talk about A, B's, and C's, right? Attendance, buildings, and contributions, the kind of hallmark of how we value the church. If you have high attendance and you have a building and you're flush with contributions, then you must be a good church, right? Right? You must be good. But I think we're coming into an age where buildings are questionable. That we are not. I don't hear as many people focused on building. It depends on where you are. If you're located in the South, the Southwest, some of the Midwest sections of the area, then buildings still have some innate kind of value because they suggest permanency.